Hey Weirdos, this is the SR6 PTFE lined receiver build video. Bill of materials on this is basically printed parts of your choice. You're going to need about 13 or 14 inches or like 350 millimeters of PTFE tubing. That's it. It uses all the hardware that you already have in your current receiver if you have one. If not, check out the SR6 BOM. You're going to want a craft knife, and that's really about it. Some random filament like PTG, but use what you got. So, first things first, gonna cut some of this tubing while I talk about how this thing kind of works. In this jig, you're gonna want to make sure you got a nice flush end. It honestly doesn't really matter. This stuff is forgiving, but might as well make it kind of right the first time. Stick it in there, brush some garbage off of your area, and then cut it. You can just pop it out here. And there you go. Here's one that I prepared earlier. Before I get into the actual assembly, other features. This is the body. As you can see, this one has spots for M4 nuts and M3 nuts. Honestly, both of these are sort of backups because the partially threaded bolts don't go far enough in to get those, but I have had some of these holes strip out, so having the bolts there is a nice option, and if the bolt doesn't go that far generally, why not? These nut holes are fine, but they don't really have too much interface surface, so again, only really useful if it strips out, and this motor doesn't really produce a ton of force anyway, so it's fine. There's also this and this, which I seem to have lost my zip tie. It's a slot for zip ties, so you can just run this here if you were wanting to, say, run it up to an arm, something like that. It was just a random little thing, so why not? It's there now. There's also a bolt here. It's just an M3. I don't know. Maybe it's useful. The other version doesn't really have any of that stuff. It has the zip tie holes, but none of the nuts. Now, for the base part, there's only one of those. Oops. Looks like this. You've seen it before if you've looked at other videos in here. Bumpers, right. So, there are 3 bumper options. I believe it was Drac 1, I don't know, I'm not gonna look at Discord while I'm doing this, who was like, well, hey, you gotta access your rings, and it's like, yeah, that's a good point. For mine, it's easy enough to pop out just with a fingernail, but hey, maybe yours isn't. So, you got options. You have the full one, which is just glued onto this bottom of the print. Super glue or 2-part epoxy, pretty much anything like that. You can even sand it down and you get a really nice smooth surface like I have here. So you can choose the one you want. Maybe you want it on the front, maybe you want it on the back. All kinds of options. You can also use it with none, works totally fine, but it's way smoother on the wiener, technical term. All right, rings. 2 options. Basically, one of them has this little removal tab here. One of them does not. That's it. There's also some slight features or differences from the stock ring. I don't know if you can quite see it here, but these gears are just slightly lowered. It's 0.4 millimeters because this right here is the bearing surface. And this is where the PTFE runs, so don't really want those anywhere near it. Oh, and there's a slight little curve here because, again, PTFE is circular. I believe that is all of it. Cool. Last notes would be, if this is not going to include the drive gear, just use your stock one. It's totally fine. But I would recommend print your ring and drive gears out of PETG. It's quieter, seems to run smoother on the PTFE. Wow, a lot of 4-letter acronyms. All right, so this one you've seen before, maybe. Basically, you just make a really crappy pasta necklace. Just grab one of the ones I made earlier, and then line them up and pop it in, and drop a few of those on the floor. I think I've got spares, that's fine. You just basically go around the ring, pop in the filament, pop in the PTFE. Really want to make sure that all of these kind of click in well, because if one of them is sticking up, it'll be weird. I didn't really bother to stick it in the thing there, but you can just slide it along. And don't cut yourself. Next up, this one. And it's real easy. You take the little pieces of pasta. So yeah, optional little performance improvements. These little ends of the PTFE here have a little lip. If you just kind of give it a little shave, works better. Since the plastic isn't a bearing surface, doesn't matter if you scratch it up, obviously. Don't want to, but some of you might have seen me do that, and I had to have an excuse. Cool. I already did most of those in a previous video that you won't see because I said my words really badly. You can do the same thing here. Just any hard surfaces, give them a bit of a cut. Cool. Then, just pop these together. And that's it. Of course, I'm going to do a little bit of screwing on this video as I fling an M4 around there. So it's all together now, but it's kind of important to get the tension right on this. You don't want it super tight, but you don't want any wobble. So I pretty much just get it to the point where they feel like they're biting, making sure it's kind of flush with the plastic there. There. And then kind of give it some wobbles. Oop, got loose back here. Yeah, that's what it was. Cool. Rattle test. Basically none.